Yo, it's me, the D Store, and today I am going to be ranking all of the bullet souls from Aria of Sorrow. Before we begin, you need to understand how they are ranked. The first port of the score is horizontal. This is just how much range it has from left to right, and this is ranked on a scale of 0 to 3. The second port is vertical, which is how much range it has up and down. This is also ranked on a scale of 0 to 3. The third port is damage, which is ranked 0 meaning no damage, 1 is 1 to 80 damage, 2 is 81 to 140 damage, and 3 is anything higher than 140. The fourth port is speed, which is ranked either 2, 4, 6, 8, or 10, 10 being the fastest. The fifth port is MP cost, where 1 equals an MP cost of 0 to 25, 0.9 is 26 to 50, 0.8 is 51 to 80, and a 0.7 is anything above 80. The final port is the bonus point, which is rewarded for having the sword or holy element, or for having some sort of special effect. The total is calculated by adding the range scores, multiplying that by the damage score, then adding the speed score, multiplying that by the MP cost score, and finally adding the bonus points. This means the max points a soul can acquire is 40. In the case of a tie, I just used my own personal opinion to determine which soul was better, and will explain why I put it above the previous one. So if you disagree, feel free to tell me how you would rank them in the comments. Also, make sure to leave your guesses for number 1. Without further ado, let's get started. We have a group of 4 who scored only 3 points due to not doing any damage. In last place, I put Chronomage, since its only real use is to get the Skyfish, otherwise it just isn't too useful in a normal playthrough. Next, I put Killer Doll, since the decoy isn't that useful, and the Waiter Skeleton can do the same thing while being better. Next, I put Nemesis, since it can be used to avoid enemies if you have the space to go around them. Then, to round out the 3s, I put Kiyomo Demon, as I felt the invincibility was enough to justify it going above the others, as it is essentially just a better nemesis. And the 4s. First up, we have Dryad, scoring a 4.5, which is due to having poor range and a very slow speed. The damage and MP cost also hurt this soul's score. The last in the 4s is the Waiter Skeleton, with a 4.6, which only beats out Dryad due to having a bonus point for being able to lure enemies away with the core. Next, there's a bit of a jump as we go into the souls that scored in the 7s. First up is the Killer Fish on land, which only scored a 7 because it is average speed and technically has the sword element. Now, floundering to the next one, we have Warman, who also scored a 7 since it is fairly slow and only has horizontal range, but plays here since it can actually do damage. Now, finishing out the category, we go to Balor, who due to high MP cost and low speed got stuck down in the sea with the fish and Warman, but is above them due to the higher damage output. Now, we get to move on to the 8s. First up, we have Une scoring an 8 due to awful range but decent damage and speed. Next, we have the Bomber, who, while having great damage, has a low speed score and uses a good amount of MP, giving it a score of 8 and going above the Une due to the much higher damage. Then we have Fleaman, scoring an 8 as well, due to good range but low damage and speed. I put this one above the Bomber Armor due to it being much easier to hit targets and overall being easier to use. Now, we do a massive jump to Were Jaguar, which scored an impressive 8.1 due to very low range but good damage and average speed, but a higher MP cost. Then, to finish out this section, we have Flame Demon, scoring an 8.2 due to mostly average scores, but then having a higher MP cost. Next, we get to the 9s, starting with Bifron, scoring a flat 9 due to having a good range, but very slow speed and high MP cost. Then, also scoring a 9, we have Axe Armor, which, while having a little less range and damage than Bifron, doesn't lose points due to MP cost and gets 2 bonus points due to the sword element and having a boomerang effect. Then, we jump to 2 who almost got double digits, starting with Demon Lord, who got a 9.9, just missing the double digits due to high MP cost. High MP cost also caused Werewolf to get a 9.9, but its much faster speed puts it above Demon Lord. Now, we finally make it to double digits with the 10s, starting with Arachne, who has good range and damage, but a fairly slow speed, but doesn't lose any major points. Then, we have the Skeleton, which has good vertical range, but poor horizontal range and damage, and goes above Arachne due to the quicker speed. Third, we have Tiny Devil, which due to its homing feature has excellent range, but very low speed keeps it from getting too many points. The homing feature also is what puts it above Skeleton. Then, we have Legion scoring a 10.4 due to great horizontal range and very high damage, but lower speed and high MP cost. Then, moving on to the 11s, we start with Giant Skeleton, with high damage but a slower speed and poor range. Then we have Forpy, also with a flat 11, due to having good range but lower damage and average speed, and goes above Giant Skeleton due to a much better range. Then, with an 11.7, we have Were Tiger, due to very fast speeds and very high damage, but it has an awful range and higher MP cost. The next is Ripper with an 11.9 due to having a better range and earning 2 bonus points for Sword Element and being able to multi-hit with the daggers. Next, we go on to the 12s. We start with Zombie Soldier who just scored very average. I don't really have much to say about this one. Then, just missing out on the top half, we have Rock Armor, who has okay range, good damage, and average speed, and only goes above Zombie Soldier due to better damage. Then, starting the upper half, we have Ghost, which has excellent range due to its homing nature and also gains an extra point for having the Holy Element. But, like most with excellent range, it is fairly slow. The Holy Element and homing is why it goes above Rock Armor. Then, we have Evil Butcher, who has good range and speed, but has low damage output and goes above Ghost due to a much better speed. Next, we have Altera, which has good range and decent damage, but only average speed. This goes above Evil Butcher due to more damage while being roughly the same speed. Then moving up to a 12.6, we have Beam Skeleton, who has high damage and speed, but costs more MP to cast and doesn't have the best range. Now we have 3 that got 14. First up is Bat, which has okay range and fast speed, but low damage. It also earns a bonus point for being able to be used while in bat form. Next up is the Cockatrice, which has good range and damage but has a slower speed. It also gets a bonus point for being able to petrify enemies, which is also why it goes above Bat. Rounding out the 14s is Blue Crow, which while not having the best range or damage, it is very fast and costs very little MP. Also, it gains a bonus point for being able to be used in bat form. This goes above the other two due to being very fast and also being way easier to hit enemies with. And with those out of the way, we go on to the largest section of the list with the 8 souls that earned a score of exactly 14. Starting with Ukobak, which for their range I decided to only give it 1 point in each one, and it is also very quick with decent damage. The next is Mandragora. It has excellent range and high damage, but is very slow and uses a lot of MP. It only goes above Ukobak due to being way easier to hit enemies with. Next up is Killer Mantle. It's fast with good damage, especially against thrown enemies, but it doesn't have very good range. It also gains a bonus point for its ability to damage the enemy through its MP stat instead. It goes above Mandragora due to being much faster. Next up is Skullmeleon, which, while having bad range, makes up for it in speed and damage, and also having Sword Element to get a bonus point. These facts make it better than Killer Mantle in most instances. Then we have Fish Head, which has fast speed, good range, and decent damage. The range is the main thing keeping it above Skullmeleon. Up next is Skull Ultra, which has good range and fast speed, and also earns a bonus point for some reason having the Sword Element. Skull Ultra stays higher than the others due to just being a better fish head with a higher. Then we have Siren, which has good range, even gains some vertical range, and also being very fast. All of which makes it just an even better Skull Ultra, which is why it is the second highest in the 14. Then finally, rounding out the 14s, we have my personally favorite soul, Student Witch. It is very fast and MP efficient, while also having a very good horizontal range and a little bit of vertical range. This one is pretty much only the highest here because it is the bullet soul I use the most and am most used to using. Now we get to move on to the 15s. First up is the surprisingly high Needles. This is mostly thanks to its quick speed and good damage, and also getting a bonus point for having this sword. Next is Dorga, which has good range, pretty fast speed, decent damage, and gets a bonus point for having the sword element. This is above Needles because you can hit enemies much easier. Then we get to the first soul gotten in the game, Winged Skeleton, which has very fast speed, some horizontal and vertical range, and also a bonus point for the sword element. This puts it above Dorga as it is faster and has the added vertical range. The next one is surprisingly low, being Red Minotaur, which, while having excellent range and very high damage, it is also fairly slow and uses some of the most MP out of any bullet soul. This is easily higher than the previous ones due to its insanely high damage and range. Then we move up to 15.3 with Lightning Doll, which has good range, damage, and speed, but loses some points due to MP cost. Then, with the 15.4, we have Gladiator, which has excellent horizontal range and a bit of vertical range and high damage, but with lower speeds and higher MP cost, but it finally gets a bonus point for the sword element. Finally, to round out this section, we have the Valkyrie, also with the 15.4, getting into in both range categories and also having a very high damage. But it also has a slower speed and uses higher MP. But it also gains a bonus point for the element you'd expect from the giant sword attack, Holy Element. Now, as you make it to the top 6, I'll go over each soul in more depth, since we have hit the 16-point marker. Starting out at number 6, we have Killer Fish and Wardor with 16 points. This is surprising considering the soul itself doesn't seem the best due to being restricted to Wardor. However, it does deal a lot of damage, and its horizontal range is very good when it's in Wardor. You can also send out a good number of them pretty quickly. Also, somehow this fish has the sword element. Now, in place number 5, we have Slime, also with 16 points. I personally don't think this soul is very good, but I put it above the fish since it can be used anywhere. It also does have very good range, being able to bounce anywhere on the screen. The biggest downfall it has is you can only send out 2 before you have to wait, meaning its speed is pretty slow. For number 4, also with 16 points, we have Maneater, which has very good horizontal range, being able to shoot the bubbles across the most of the screen. It also deals a very respectable amount of damage. It can also be fired at fast rates, meaning you can have a constant stream of the bubbles attacking enemies. Now, into the top 3, we start with the final 16-point door, Mudman, which has excellent horizontal range and can also get a little bit of vertical height. It also deals a good amount of damage when being able to throw it out pretty fast. I personally never really used this soul, but I might start utilizing it a bit. Now, for number 2, with 17.1 points, and probably one of the ones guessed to be number 1, is Nightmare, which has great horizontal range covering the whole screen. It fails on having vertical range, but does make up for it by having exceptional damage and also being very quick to send out. However, it does take a hit in points due to having a higher MP cost than most. And finally, for the top spot, which I highly doubt anyone guessed correctly with a whopping 19 points, is Disc Armor. This is very surprising, but the soul is primarily helped out by being able to reach a good amount horizontally as well as vertically. It also deals a very high amount of damage at fairly high speeds. It also gains a bonus point for having the sword element, just to cement its lead even further. However, it does lose some points for using too much MP. One thing that shocked me is even after checking the scores without MP cost, it was still tied for number 1. After finding this out, I decided to try it out against the boss rush, and honestly, it worked really well for almost all the bosses except for Graham. So, there it is, every bullet soul ranked. I think some souls managed to sneak into higher spots by being quick and cheap to use, but I guess at least the top 4 were very reasonable. I was expecting Red Mantros to score the most, but it only is on the top when you don't factor in MP cost. But that also moves Mandragora to 3rd place, and I don't think it's that good. I will probably start streaming sometime soon and be trying to beat the game using only the bullet souls. I'll start with the top of my list and work my way down until I get to the lowest one that can do damage, since I obviously am not going to beat the game at something like Chrono Mage. So make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.